2 winters ago, we had a house fire and kind of forced our hand to make a decision about what to do. And we didn't have the insurance money to put the house all back together, but we did have enough to pay off the mortgage and buy a piece of land up here and move. So that's what we did. And
wow,
when we got to it, we got to raw land with just a tent and a pile of lumber.
This is the Farm Hop Life podcast. I'm Matt DeRozier. Today my guest is Guy Alaska. That's his legal name. I verified it, and it just so happens to live in Alaska. How about that? He's a homesteader in Northeast Alaska with a wife and like 10 kids or something, it seems. And because he's in Alaska, he has horrible internet, and so we're on the phone right now. Anyways, Guy, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. Hopefully this works out well for both of us.
Yeah.
So, you're like a bushman, like an Alaskan bush people guy, but without a TV show. I was looking through your wife's Instagram that you sent me, like a link, and you guys are like real bush people. That's awesome.
Yeah, yep. We try to distance ourselves as much as we can from those folks, but yeah, that's the idea. We're out here really doing it.
That's awesome. So, how did you get started homesteading?
Well, it's been something that we wanted to do for, pretty much always. And so my wife grew up in Southeast Alaska. She's Alaska Native. And we got married up here and moved back to where I'm from, which is Michigan, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And we'd always planned to come back up here, buy a piece of land, and do a little farming. But we kind of had like a 10-year plan. And this past winter, so not this past winter, 2 winters ago, we had a house fire and kind of forced our hand to make a decision about what to do. And we didn't have the insurance money to put the house all back together, but we did have enough to pay off the mortgage and buy a piece of land up here and move. So that's what we did. And
wow,
when we got to it, we got to raw land with just a tent and a pile of lumber.
That's crazy. So that happened 2 winters ago?
Yeah, yep, Christmas Day.
Whoa, what happened?
We did what we normally did, which is in the evenings, which is pack the wood stove and damper it down so we'd get a nice low, slow burn throughout the day so the house wouldn't be cold when we got home, and somehow fire started.
Jeez. I'm assuming everyone made it out okay, and...
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? So everything we look at in life, we see what the blessing is in it.
Sure.
And in that instance, we would have done that evening, and we may, not have got out, or some of us, even worse, some of us might have got out and the others wouldn't. So
sure, yep.
It worked out as a blessing for us.
That's crazy. So did you guys have prior experience like homesteading? Like, did your parents have a garden? Did they have any animals? Did her parents have a garden or animals, or just kind of did you guys hunt, fish, forage?
Yeah, so Shayla grew up with doing quite a bit of subsistence eating, I guess you could say. She grew up doing a lot of berry picking and going to the beach. You get crabs, octopus, cockles, sea cucumber, all kinds of stuff. And then eating a lot of subsistence salmon and halibut. The way I grew up kind of around farm country. I grew up in the suburbs mostly, inner city until I was about 7, and then we moved to the suburbs. And a lot of my friends were farmers. It was something I always wanted to do. But I never really had much opportunity to hunt or work on a farm. So the only exposure I ever had to that was going and visiting friends for the most part. But, we tried to do what we could. Once we got married, we were farming our land a little bit. We had goats, sheep. We're working on testing out different crops, things like that, and kind of dipping our toes in.
That's great. So what are you doing now?
So right now, we've got chickens, which we are probably going to get rid of. They don't do as well here. It rains about 99 days out of the year, and it rains over 200 days of the year. You get about 99 days of sunshine. And so we're going to probably change gears and go to ducks. Most people in our area have chickens and ducks, but the ducks, they'll lay pretty prolifically throughout the winter. And this is just kind of their weather here.
Yeah.
And then we've got some goats, we've got rabbits, livestock guardian dogs, which help protect us and everything from the bears, which, they're everywhere here. Son was chasing a chicken the other day, pulled back some brush, and was pretty much nose to nose with one.
Whoa!
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yikes!
So, yeah, and so that's kind of what we got going on. We just ordered a bunch of seed. We started our potatoes, and we just bought 7 acres up the road from us. It's all muskeg, so it'll be interesting, but it gets full sun, so that's a big advantage.
Good.
When there is sun, you get full sun.
Good.
So yeah, we're just kind of getting started here too, and there's a lot of testing to do, but we'll get it figured out.
What do you? So you guys said you moved up there with a tent. What do you guys have for shelter now?
So we brought enough lumber to build a 16 by 16 cabin.
Okay.
So that's what we did, and it's just on just little 4-foot or 4x4 posts, basically just sitting on top of the ground, which is not a long-term solution, obviously, but we've got beams now that are going to go under it and put some concrete pilings under. But yeah, we started out with a 16 by 16, and then I added a 14 by 10 kitchen off one side, and I'm working on a 14 by 10 bedroom off the other, and we just kind of build out as we can. The kids are up in lofts, and
Sure.
the bed is in the main room here. It's cozy.
It sounds cozy. Yeah. The one bedroom house, right? For a pile of people.
Yep, exactly. Easy to heat in the winter, which is nice.
There you go. Just be careful with that wood stove.
Right. Yeah, we made sure we checked all our boxes with it.
There you go. So what motivates you to grow your own food? I know it's obviously being in remote Alaska, it's kind of hard to go to the grocery store every day, but I'm assuming that there's more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really like to live as traditionally as we can, which involves doing a lot of harvesting of wild foods. But you can't always rely on that, especially with commercial fisheries tend to overfish, and that's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And I'm not against commercial fishing at all.
Sure.
But you've got issues with that. You've got issues with nuclear meltdowns in Japan affects fish. And
Yep.
Microplastics, all that stuff can affect fish. People building dams and things like that all change migration patterns, change spawning. And so it's hard to rely on that like we could even 60 years ago. So growing our own food is important because it fills in the gaps when nature might not be doing what it normally does for us. And you can look at the big one right now is just look at current events. You can see what's on the schedule for this summer and next fall is probably global food shortages, and so we want to make sure that we're on top of that, at least buying seed. Because it's likely the last a couple of years we've already seen with supply chain issues that once that starts, it's really hard to get it back up and running again. So
it's you can't just turn it back on like a switch. It's
exactly
yeah.
And especially being out here when we don't necessarily need money, but money's nice to have. It's hard to find work out here without leaving the island. So it's good to be able to grow your own food. So that's one less thing you need money for.
Do you have a day job?
I do not. Nope. I haven't worked for anyone in about 10 months. I've done a fair amount of scrapping at various dumps. That's one thing you'll find in Alaska is you've got dumps, the old style where you just go and dump stuff there. So I was able to basically fund our trip and all the lumber by scrapping at the previous island we were at, and I'm doing the same thing here to scrape together extra money where I can.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and once the dump's cleared out, though, you gotta figure something else out.
Yep. You seem like a pretty switched on guy. I bet you'll figure out something else to make some quick money. So, so what kind of like practices, techniques, or methods do you have going on at your place? Like, do you have to do raised beds for anything specific, or can you plant right into the ground? Do you do like hugelkultur, or have your soon-to-be-gone chickens, till the area a little bit, scratch it up to work it, or anything?
Yeah, there's a lot of testing that's got to go on. I mean, like I said, with the 7 acres we just bought, which is all muskeg, which for listeners who don't want to get on Google and find out the answer in 5 seconds, muskeg is basically what used to be a big lake, and it gets filled in over time by mosses, predominantly sphagnum moss. And so you've got this peat, and then moss on top of that, and that peat can go anywhere from 3 meters to 30 meters deep.
Whoa.
And it's usually interspersed with little puddles and ponds that could also be, they look like they have a bottom maybe 6 inches down, but if you step in it, you're just going down. So
do people die
it's kind of
by stepping into that peat?
I haven't heard of it, but it definitely it could happen. Every time I look at them, it reminds me of the Hound of the Baskervilles. It talks about up on the moors and hearing the ponies. Sometimes in the night you hear a pony screaming because it fell into a bog and couldn't get out. So they're kind of like that. So
dang.
Yeah, so it's a whole different thing, and with the amount of rainfall we get, everything's highly acidic. So you grow there's a lot of blueberries and cranberries that grow on that land. But things that might like acid a little more, like potatoes, don't necessarily like being wet. So, we have a lot of stuff to try. We're going to try heaping up peat and trying to grow potatoes directly on that. We're going to try sweetening it a little bit with lime and potash. There's just all kinds of, basically we need to do, a dozen test plots for every kind of plant we want to grow and try different things and see what works and what doesn't.
Wow. That's kind of crazy. That's, you're saying a dozen, like kind of, okay, we'll try the potatoes in a dozen different places and see where it does best. And then, take your blueberries, I think you said, and like test that in, a dozen different spots and see where it goes best. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, more or less. So.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of work. So that's why we're not going to be producing a lot of food this year. This year's when we find out how we can produce a lot of food.
That's kind of crazy. So like I'm assuming it'd be really difficult to bring in any fill, like some decent soil, if you were to even attempt to do raised beds, because it's ridiculous to get it out there. But also, like, maybe you could treat the soil like in spots. So like, okay, so let's lower the acidity in this 4x8 square foot area or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when you get up here, it just kind of blows your mind, and it's confusing because there isn't soil. I mean, there
Okay.
is. There's some glacial till. Like our home site, we've got quite a bit of glacial till. There's a lot of nice, there's a mix of clay. You'll run into big pockets of clay. There's silty soil. There's gravel. But so you've got the muskegs up there, and then down here you've got some of that, but that's where you have the forests. They grow on that. So, you have to clear cut stuff if you want to grow anything and pull stumps. And so the idea with the muskeg, you can fill, but you're not going to do much excavating. So what you do is you would put down corduroy, which here essentially you would just use slab wood from a sawmill or logs, and you make a corduroy road with that, and then you cover it with sand and gravel. So you can fill in, and that's kind of our long-term goal is maybe doing an eighth of an acre a year like that, where we do corduroy. We have a local guy who has a gravel pit come and cover that, and then we start building soil on that with manure, kelp, things like that.
Wow. So you need to just build a base of something before you can even just start building soil. That's incredible. Like you're like in the negative to start with.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I thought I had it bad. I'm in the Rockies, and like I've got like a little bit of topsoil, and anything below 3 inches in most places, like it's you just hit rocks every foot, or not even, every 3 inches. Just trying to put a post in the ground is insane, but I'm not going to complain anymore if I can at least plant something, I guess. So it sounds like the high acidity or plants that don't mind acid are doing pretty good right now. You're going to switch from chickens to ducks, and goats are doing pretty well. What else is doing well for you out there?
I mean, just mainly our wild foods that we usually harvest are. I mean, when we moved here, there was even more here than where my wife grew up. She was ecstatic. But we've got huckleberries, blueberries. This is all grows wild. Huckleberries, blueberries, salmonberries, elderberries. You got soapberries, wild cranberries. There's like 10 different varieties of wild blueberries.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yep. We harvest fiddleheads. And we make tea with Hudson Bay tea and cedar. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of wild food available. And the downside is in our area here, it's full of sea otters. When we moved into an area that doesn't have a lot of Alaska Natives living in it anymore. It's a traditional area. It had a lot of fish camps and villages here, but it's mainly non-natives who live here now, which means that they can't do anything about sea otter populations.
Oh, they're protected?
So that's one thing yep. Only Alaska Natives are allowed to harvest marine mammals, and specifically sea otter and seals. So that's something that my wife is going to be doing, hopefully starting this fall, is starting to harvest some of those sea otters, so that way the crab and other shellfish in the bay have a chance to start recovering, because there's no food. You can go to the minus tide out there, and there's nothing, versus the island where she grew up, and it's just full of food that you can walk out at a minus tide and harvest, because they help to maintain the otter populations there.
Does that so she can do it because she's native. What about your kids? Do they count?
Oh yeah, yep. Okay. They're all Alaska Native. They're all got their CIB and everything.
Do they? When you say Alaska Native, do you mean born there or actually natives like? Yeah, thanks for asking about that. That's a big one, because I know a lot of people say I'm, for instance, a Montana native. Sure.
And to people that just means that they grew up there. But Alaska Native is actually a category of Native American.
Okay.
So if you go to Canada, there's 3 indigenous groups, right? You have the Métis, the Inuit, and the First Nations. In the U.S., we have American Indian and Alaska Native, and so they're very. Even in Alaska, you've got a really diverse group of people. I mean, if you go up north, you have the Inuit, the Yupik, the Dena'ina, and they all have their own unique cultures. And then you come down to Southeast Alaska, and you have Tsimshian, Tlingit, Haida. Used to be Chilkat. I don't know if they're around anymore. I should know, and I feel ashamed that I don't. But yeah, but all those people are allowed to harvest marine mammals, and because it's a traditional food source and clothing source for them.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on who was allowed to hunt those species. So everyone gets to have fun, but you're out.
Yeah, well, I can shoot plenty of bears and deer.
There you go. I guess that makes up for it. We'll call it even.
Yep.
But it's always so much better when you can when you get to participate too. Like, man, now that I can't do it, I want to do it. I want to do it more than I did before.
Yeah, I mean, I can jive with it, and that's the thing. I mean, I can't do anything with it. I can't harvest the animal. I can't handle the fur.
Wow.
I can't do anything. I can't handle the meat. Nothing.
That's pretty strict.
You know what? But it's really important that our kids are able to engage with their culture this way. I mean, their language is already dying and almost extinct, even though there's a lot of efforts to bring it back because, a lot of government policies made it against the rules, basically, and in some cases illegal for natives to speak their language.
What?
And children were sent to residential schools where they were beaten severely if they spoke their language, and so almost all of the Native American languages in the United States and Canada have died out completely.
That
the
is
last
messed
residential
up.
school actually in the U.S. closed in the 90s, and that was up near Traverse City in Michigan. So this is still pretty recent history.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I forgot where we were. But I liked that. That was a lot of good information. I've never been to Alaska. It's on my bucket list. And so hopefully when we actually hit the road, we're all gonna go to Alaska just for
Awesome.
an undetermined amount of time.
There you go. That'd be great. Yeah, there's a lot of farmers up there, especially if you get up north and onto the road system. There'd probably be a lot of people you could get in touch with. It's a little bit harder to get to us.
I'm coming to see you first. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but...
That'd be great. Yeah, like I said, it's hard to get to us. You got to land in town, and then you have to... I mean, you can catch a mail plane over, but...
Just one at a time.
That's weather dependent.
Yeah, sure. But anyways, so what hasn't worked out for you in Alaska there? What has failed? What's been your failures? We like to share failures here.
Oh, well, I think the biggest ones are just me having, even though I had familiarity with the land because we lived in Southeast Alaska before, I think, I don't know, I still had the expectation that I was going to show up and just build a house like I would anywhere else.
Sure.
I had plans I brought bags of cement. I was planning to dig post holes and, set posts in cement. And then I tried to put a spade in the ground and I couldn't get anywhere with it.
Oh, no.
It would just bounce back up at me because of the root mass and all the moss and everything. So, yeah, and then on the first day here, too, we had 3.5 acres where the home site is, and I walked up the hill, find a good spot, found a decent spot, and then I spent an entire day using loppers just to hack a trail up wide enough to bring lumber up to that spot. And so for about 3 or 4 weeks after that, I had such a bad injury in either the muscles or the tendons in my forearm that I could barely even build. I was building with one hand and an 11-year-old boy, basically.
Dang.
Yeah, but I mean, we got it done. I don't know. We had some tragedy when we got here. One of the dogs we brought had whipworm, and my son, whose job it was to take care of the dogs while I was getting everything built and set up, he didn't notice that the dog's body condition was going down pretty quick, and then one day he told me that the dog wasn't eating his food, and I thought that was unusual. And he said, yeah, he's not eating, and he looks a little skinny. I was like, what? So I went down and looked at him, and he was skeletal.
Oof.
And it just happened over a period of maybe 3 weeks. He lost probably 50% of his body weight. But at that point, it was too late, and he was already an organ failure, so I had to put him down.
Oh, no.
We were able to save the other dogs, but unfortunately here I couldn't call a local vet, even the one that I'd used before when we were here, because, in their words, we don't have a relationship with your dog. And so I was like, so you can't even prescribe me a broad-spectrum dewormer? So I had to call back to our vet in Michigan, and they mailed up some Panacur, and we were able to save the rest of the dogs with that. That was a big failure, I guess, was missing that. That was a bummer.
That is a big bummer. That sucks. So what's you talked about things that have worked against you, like, not being able to even throw a shovel in the ground, the high acidity in your soil, what little you have, and the peat. Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest challenge you've faced so far?
Just getting a homestead set up. I mean, like, everything is just muddy, mucky, spongy, getting whipped in the face with all kinds of stuff, tripping over roots constantly. I mean, it's not like anywhere that you would see in the lower 48. It's nothing like it. I mean, you can't even comprehend it until you're here. And then you think, yeah, I could probably make this work, and then you start building stuff. And it's a nightmare. When you try to dig footings, you'll be sinking in mud up to your waist, and it's just, yeah, that's the hugest challenge is really just getting anything built here. And a lot of people who come here, when they first get here, they kind of do it the easy way and just put log pilings in the ground or on the ground. And, this is where we want to stay forever. I mean, eventually those buildings collapse in 15 to 20 years. And so,
wow.
Yeah, we've been putting concrete footings in, and basically if we can't afford to build it right now, to build it the right way, the way that'll last, at least long enough for our kids to use it, then we don't do it.
Okay, wow, that's you must like a challenge. I'm getting that you just like incredible challenges, that just life every day just needs to be harder.
Yeah, it sounds like that, but you are wrong. I would much prefer for everything to be a lot easier, but that's kind of the trade-off, right? Like,
right.
If we're out here where it's really hard, nobody's going to bother us out here.
Yeah.
It's too hard. There's been a lot of people who've come to this island, bought land here, came here, tried for a summer, and left, never to return.
Wow.
So, nobody's coming here by accident, and I don't know, it tends to attract, the kind of people who are tough enough to tough it out, and that's it.
Sure, I get it.
So it's a good place to be.
To paint a picture for people listening, my wife and I were looking at your wife's Instagram last night, and she's like, "Look at how they do laundry. You guys have totes, just regular plastic totes with water, soap, and clothes in them, and it looked like your kids were like pushing the clothes in the bucket with soapy water, with like almost like churning butter, kind of like to just like push it down, and then it takes like 3 days to dry your clothes, is what she saw. And I was like, oh, we could do that. We leave our clothes in the dryer for 3 days, so I mean it's kind of the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's something. We've gone back and forth about how to improve that aspect of our lives, because a washer and dryer. First of all, a washer requires either hauling a lot of water or having rain barrels that you can run down to it, and a dryer uses an incredible amount of energy.
Absolutely.
And so we would have to get a larger generator. We only have a 2,000 watt inverter generator right now, which I have to have my son stand anytime I want to cut anything with a skill saw. My son has to stand by it and constantly reset the breaker on it.
Oh no!
It shuts off just from a saw. So, yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, what we're doing out here, it's really weird because we're about as pioneering as you're gonna get, but we still have so many modern conveniences that make our lives a lot easier. You really have to admire the real pioneers that came here before.
Oh, absolutely. We're such wimps. I was talking to somebody recently, and I was like, I can't imagine, like, just going out and hunting, even, let's say, I don't know, 50, 75 years ago. Like, you had to go, I guess, a little bit further back, 100 plus years ago. Like, if you didn't go out and hunt, frequently, your family was going to starve. I mean, just the bare basics. Like, you better get out there and come back with something, or otherwise you're going to be hungry. Right. And your family's going to go hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's bush life out here, too. A lot of people, they might have some kind of income, but, I mean, Alaska's pretty unique in that they have subsistence hunting and fishing licenses for residents. And I don't know if there's any other states like that, but, for instance, a few years back, my subsistence hunting license allowed me to take, and this was in one subsistence area, allowed me to take 5 deer and 6 bear on that one license.
Wow.
You can get a subsistence halibut card, which, gets you tons of fish. And most people, that's really how they still live.
That's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you think about it, too. I mean, for a family our size, the deer here, black-tailed deer, are pretty small. And, I mean, we eat through one deer in 3 days. I mean, all of it, the whole thing.
Wow.
So, yeah, you got to have a lot of meat and a lot of people hunting.
I guess so. So on the flip side, what's the best part of homesteading?
Yeah, it's I guess the freedom. I mean, we came out here for the freedom. That was the bottom line. Was what's the freest place in America, if not the world?
Sure.
And it's remote Alaska. I mean, I don't have taxes. I don't have there's no state tax, first of all, no state income tax, but I don't have any property tax. I don't have any building codes. I don't have to get permitting to do anything. This is, you're out here, and you just have to survive any way you can. So if they were to put stipulations on that, nobody would come to Alaska. So, yeah, I mean, I can do pretty much whatever I want. I mean, I don't have to have insurance on my vehicle. I don't even have to have a valid driver's license out here. And so
That's pretty great.
Is ultimate freedom, right?
Right. How did you guys pick to be on like the southeast part of Alaska, on an island versus I hear a lot of like people in the interior Alaska. What was it? Was it because of your wife's history that it's kind of what she knew?
Yeah, that was all it was. Yeah, I mean, we considered going up north, but yeah, I mean, this is her home. It's been her people's home for 4,000 years. You can take you take the Tsimshian out of southeast Alaska, but you can't take southeast out of the Tsimshian kind of thing.
Sure.
This is home paper, so that's why we ended up here. And I was she didn't want to go and do all this stuff, really. And she likes to have a washing machine and light bulbs.
And light bulbs.
And I didn't really want to be in southeast Alaska, so that was the compromise, that we go to southeast, and I get to live in the freest, most remote place I can find where nobody will ever bother us.
That's pretty sweet. I mean,
yeah.
You got me there. What's the terrain on your property like? I mean, is it like almost 100% wooded, or you got like that? I forgot what it was called. The peat.
The muskeg.
Muskeg, yeah. So you got a lot of trees.
We've got a mix.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've got a mix. I mean, we have a change in elevation of probably maybe 30 or 40 feet from one end to the other. It's, like I said, there's a lot of glacial till. There's huge seams of just hard clay, seams of gravel, then silt, and then the low areas collect all that peat. We've got tons of blueberries and huckleberries everywhere. The trees that are here we have mountain hemlock, western hemlock, red cedar, yellow cedar, and spruce. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. It's just kind of everything's mossy. And have you ever seen Florida with the Spanish moss hanging from the trees?
Yeah, I think I've seen pictures of that. Yeah.
And then on Star Wars, that one forest where they're riding the speeders through.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you take that forest and combine it with the kind of the swampy Florida moss hanging from trees look, that's kind of what it is.
That's kind of wild, man.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. With lots of bears walking through it.
With lots of bears.
Yeah.
What's your I'll ask you at the end a good bear story or two. That I'm sure you've got a bunch, but so what's we talked a little bit earlier about, we're looking at a food crisis here.
Yeah.
It's gonna get ugly here and later this year. I can't imagine it not. But so what would you say about food security? So
yeah, I mean, I'd say that many people are aware of it. It's kind of, I think, just like with the currency issue and everything, for the majority of people, this stuff is kind of in their peripherals because it hasn't really hurt yet, and they don't want to think about what could be happening. But, I'd say as far as food security goes, what's it going to hurt you to grow a little something at your home?
Yeah.
So if you can, if you have the space, grow some foods that are easy. The biggest one I recommend to anybody is grow potatoes. And potatoes literally could save your life. If you have a good way to store them, you can store them in your refrigerator or whatever. Do some research on storing potatoes. Don't listen to all of the big university extensions that say you can't store them in a root cellar at home without spraying them with special stuff. Your ancestors did it just fine.
Sure, yeah.
Grow potatoes. And one large potato has about the same vitamin C as an orange does. Huh. That's another that's another one of those things where they try to tell you that you have to have all these tropical fruits. Eat a banana. Well, why don't you just eat some spinach? You know, there's whatever foods grow in the place you live. All those foods have the things that your body needs to thrive. If you can get away from processed foods and actually eat the foods that grow well in your area, you'll do fine. And you go up north, and I'm talking way up north in Alaska in the Arctic Circle, and the natives who live up there have been subsisting on seafood, whales and berries. That's the brunt of their diet. They don't get vegetables. I mean, with the exception of some of the vegetables that do grow on the tundra for a short period of time in the summer, tubers and things like that. But for the most part, it's meat. And so, but all those meats have all the vitamins and minerals and things, protein that they need. So, yeah, just say grow some potatoes. Make sure that you've got some kind of food security. And another thing that I've noticed a lot of people have been doing is buying chest freezers and filling their freezer. Mm-hmm. But what other crisis do we have going on right now? We have energy crisis and fuel crisis. If the lights go out and you have a generator, you can keep your freezer fine by just running your generator for a day or for an hour or two a day. But if you can't get fuel, and this is stuff people just can't imagine a scenario where this happens, but it's right around the corner. It's right there. It doesn't take much to get there. So I'd say stop stocking freezers, canned goods. It might taste like shit, but it'll keep you alive. Whereas if you've just filled 6 chest freezers full of food and they all thaw, you're done. And you've wasted all the money that you could have spent on food that would actually last. Those are, I guess, my 2 big recommendations. Stock up on true non-perishables that are shelf-stable and grow some potatoes. The easiest food you can grow.
That is a good idea. I'll share a quick freezer story. For whatever reason, I unplugged the freezer, or it tripped. I don't remember what happened, but we had gone. It was 3 days. This freezer didn't have power, and I noticed that it was wet under the freezer. I'm like, oh no. There's a couple $100 easy, $500, let's say, of meat in there. And I honestly felt sick, I was gonna puke, not because it stunk, but because that's such a waste. So it was still chilled, it wasn't frozen, and so I'm some of the stuff I just had to throw in the burn barrel, but the rest of it, I cooked a lot of meat that day. I think from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was just out at the grill, just cooking meat, and then just put it all in the refrigerator just so it didn't get thrown away. I ate pretty good that week, right. All in all, but man, that was an expensive that was an expensive week.
No kidding. Yeah, it can be a bummer, and that's the thing. Most people that have a chest freezer have had a failure before. Mm-hmm. But we've grown so accustomed to what is truly, I think, the most unnatural lifestyle that people have enjoyed en masse in the history of humankind. We become so accustomed to that lifestyle that we can't even imagine what it's like to live just the way our great-grandparents did.
Right. Yeah, we're losing that knowledge. Hey, how did we used to do this?
Right. Yeah, that's a big one too. I mean, we buy a lot of books. If the internet's out and you want to know how to do something, you can't Google it. So stocking up on books that give you some basic knowledge about that stuff.
Sure.
Could be a lifesaver.
Yeah. So in relation to, food crisis, energy crisis, fuel crisis, I have a note here on currency crisis. What do you, You want to expand on that a little bit? What do you mean by I mean obviously it sucks. Everything's expensive when it shouldn't be. But what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, you can go long back on a second here.
Mm-hmm.
I think my kids are okay. Yeah, I mean, you can go back, I guess, as far as you want to talking about the debasement of currencies. But I guess suffice to say, if your listeners aren't tracking already, which I suspect most of them are,
mm-hmm.
Our currency, the U.S. dollar, has basically been worthless since, right around 1913, when I think that's when the Fed was created.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was debased in, what was it, 43? Is that when FDR confiscated everybody's gold and then immediately revalued it? 50% higher?
That sounds kind of familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he did that, he tied all the world's currencies to the U.S. dollar by making the U.S. dollar exchangeable for gold. And, every country did that because gold was money. And I think it was J.P. Morgan famously said that gold is money, everything else is credit. And that's always been the case, and the world has always known that. And your central bankers know that, which is why they stockpile it. But they don't get rich by hoarding gold. They get rich by printing money and convincing you that it has value and convincing you to spend it. So anyway, where we're at now, since Nixon closed the gold window in 71, I think it was, basically our currency has been in free fall. And over the past 100 years, it's lost 90% of its value. And it's happening faster each day. I mean, you can see inflation's over 7% year over year, and it's not slowing down.
That's what they say.
It's been overvalued. Yeah.
I'm not buying it's only 7%. That's stupid. There's no way.
No, and you should. I think, was it shadowstats.com? He does pretty good analysis. Was it John Williams, I think? He does pretty good analysis, and I'm not sure what he's looking at now, maybe over 12%, maybe more, but yeah, it's definitely, it's up there, and, everybody's saying that stuff is already priced in. I think, it might be priced in, but the bottom line is all those inflated dollars that we've been exporting to every other country, for decades, at some point, sooner rather than later, are going to come home to roost.
Mm-hmm.
Vladimir Putin saying that he's only going to accept rubles for their country's energy. He's been working with China since December on making their countries free from the SWIFT system and basically backing their currencies, whether digital or, whatever, backing them with their gold reserves. And you've got a lot of other countries that are getting on board with them. So the U.S. dollar, in my mind, is probably about to tank. And it's going to be really painful, and we're headed for a really painful period of time. It's probably going to rival the Great Depression.
Sure.
And like I said, most people just, they can't get their hearts to believe it, I think. And so a lot of people are going to be hurting. But, just keep spreading the good news that the dollar's about to crash, so stock up.
So what are you doing, and what would you suggest people do to prepare for this, like this crash, or the dollar getting killed off entirely? And does that have anything to do with this? I forget the acronym. Central Bank Digital Currency. Yeah, that one.
Yep, the CBDC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole interesting thing too. I don't know if we want to get too far down that rabbit trail, but personally, what I'm doing, obviously I'm not giving any financial advice, but what I'm doing at a personal level is we for years now, we don't save money inside of a bank. We save in gold and silver, and there's a lot of ways that you can do that. You can have physical silver in your possession. You want to make sure, and physical gold in your possession, you want to make sure that that's in a a safe place. To me, a safe place is not a safe. To me, a safe place is somewhere well hidden that anyone breaking in is not going to even think to look.
Right.
And put it in a bag in your toilet. I wouldn't do that, but there's options, right, to keep that stuff safe. But yeah, so that's the big one. That's what we do to basically preserve our buying power and preserve the money that we've earned. If you have inflation at a rate of 7% and your bank is only paying you, 0.3% interest on your savings, then you're losing your savings at a rate of 6.7% every year. So
Yes.
It just does not make sense to be leaving stuff in the bank. And then you have examples of you have austerity in Greece where they'll just take your money, or you have in Canada recently when they froze people's bank accounts. If you're a political dissident, guess what? You don't have access to the money you've earned. And so we keep excess money out of the bank. If you end up needing money, it's a simple process of mailing that physical gold and silver off to a bullion dealer, or just go see a bullion dealer, and you can exchange it for just below spot price or at spot price, or depending on demand over spot price. And then you have your U.S. dollars again. So we do that. As far as silver goes, we try to keep silver mainly as a medium of exchange. So we buy 1 ounce denominated, or 1 ounce coins. Smaller than that, some of the old U.S. junk silver, as they call it, 90% silver quarters, dimes, half dollars. But at some point, even that is not going to be valuable, right? So then we get other stuff that has traditional use as money, like ammunition, tobacco, stock up on the cheapest vodka you can find. I mean, people have vices, right? So when it really gets down to it, those things are all money.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what we do. We try to stock up on stuff that we know we're always going to be able to use as a medium of exchange.
Yeah. My dad's cleaning out his basement right now, and he sent me some pictures. He's like, hey, I got some 12 gauge ammo and some 223. Do you want it? I'm like, hell yes, I want it. Like, if you're just...
Absolutely.
Why would you not? And like, I don't think he remembers that I actually traded another thing of value. I traded a shotgun for something, and I traded my AR for something. And so I don't even have a use for those bullets.
Right.
But I'm going to take them, because someday I'm either going to get a 12 gauge again and an AR again, or I'll use them to trade. So...
Absolutely. Yep. I've done a lot of trading in the past 10 months.
That's pretty sweet. So, I'm curious. So you're a gold bug, and I've had a few different people on here already talk to me about Bitcoin, which I own some. So, like, what do you think about it? You seem to be pretty heavy into precious metals.
Yeah. So. Bitcoin. It's an interesting one, man, and I'm not an expert on it. I don't even fully understand how it works.
That's okay.
And seriously, I've had FOMO for the past 2 years. Been thinking about buying it, but I cannot get this little bug out of my mind that Bitcoin is a tool of the CIA or central banks or somebody like that to confiscate all of this excess liquidity in the markets and then obliterate everyone's wealth. And in the meantime, they've gotten everybody who is already anti-establishment to put all of their capital into this thing, and then, boom, it's gone. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't trust it. It doesn't seem to be what people say it is. And I mean, just the fact that you've got people out there, I mean, for lack of a better word, I hate using, cliches, but that are shilling it. I mean, you have people who are billionaires from it. And I mean, they're constantly just, whether it's up or down, they're talking about how great it is, and there's always an angle about why it's great. And it looks a lot like a Ponzi scheme to me. And like I said, I've got FOMO, man, because I'd love to get rich too.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see what the currency is doing, and I'm absolutely convinced that the U.S. dollar is going to zero. It will no longer, ever again, hold place as the world's reserve currency. And, I mean, if that's what your Bitcoin's denominated in, then you've lost it anyway, right? I mean, sure, you can exchange it for other currencies. You can, in theory. But at the end of the day, too, for the most part, people don't have it in a place where it can't be confiscated. It can be confiscated. We've watched the U.S. government pay ransoms to hackers in Bitcoin and then get it right back. So to me, like, who has the keys to be able to do that? Probably the creators of it. So that's where I'm at with it. Now, I'm not totally out of the crypto camp. I want to make that clear. I don't own any cryptocurrency whatsoever because I don't expect to always have access to a way to exchange it. But
sure.
I have a Monero wallet, and if somebody ever offered to pay me in Monero, I'd probably let them do it just to give it a shot. What could it hurt?
Yeah.
But I'll never buy it. One, because no matter how I buy it, unless I send cash in an envelope to some guy and he puts it in my wallet, it's 100% traceable. All of it is. So it's not this really decentralized. None of it's this decentralized thing that it's made out to be. I mean, I just read an article recently too. It was really interesting. I can't remember who published it, but it was talking about Russia going to gold and really saying that was talking about the threat that was, and saying that it could be used for terrorism and laundering money and stuff like that. All the stuff that they say about Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, you have all of these institutional investors buying into Bitcoin. You have a lot of governments buying into Bitcoin. But when a government says we're going to start using gold, the entire fiat world is up in arms over it. So that's the real decentralized finance to me. That's the real stuff that's untraceable.
So I had heard that the El Salvadorian president, I don't remember his name, he, get buying more Bitcoin, and he's getting this huge backlash against the IMF, saying oh, you better not do that, or we're not gonna support you anymore, or whatever. And he goes, cool, I don't want your junk money anyway. So
right.
I don't know.
Well, that's the biggest. Yeah, that's the biggest lure, I think, of those kinds of things is that, it's outside of these people's control, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they're going to try to find a way to control it. And that's kind of where I'm at with it is, if I'm holding Bitcoin and they do find a way to control it, guess what? I'm not holding Bitcoin anymore. Because I'm not holding anything, really. I mean, it's just numbers in space somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm not a Bitcoiner, but I'm not. The jury's out on it for me. I'm going to be if Bitcoin ends up winning for everybody, I'll be right there cheering them on and celebrating it.
Sure.
But it's
Fair
just
enough.
not something that I can bring myself to do.
That's fine. I mean, you got your gold thing. I mean, I've got a little bit of precious metal, a little bit of crypto. So I like to dabble in everything. See what takes.
There's a lot of wisdom to that.
So, well, wrapping up here, what would you tell people that want to get started homesteading, moving to Alaska? Maybe tell them they don't move to Alaska. What would you like to tell people?
Well, I would say think it over long and hard. And if you come to the conclusion that it's something you absolutely have to do, then you have to do it. But if you can come to the conclusion that you could do without it, stop entertaining it. Because once you're in, you got to be all in,
Right.
or you're going to lose. But I would also say, if you want to do it, now is the time to go. This might be the last opportunity, and I hate to be so hyperbolic, but it really might be the last opportunity to get out and get away from all that.
You mean they're going to make it harder to move, to like be, to get out of cities or highly populated areas, or is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, it could be. I just think that it's going to be a lot harder for people to buy land.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Bottom line, I mean, right now, everything that you have can still be sold for U.S. dollars, and those U.S. dollars you can turn around and buy land with them. But imagine tomorrow when the dollar's worthless, and people are getting food rations, and you decide now I want to buy land. Well, guess what? 1 acre of land is now $300,000.
Some places it is.
I could get on Craigslist and sell my car. Well, fuel's, $15 a gallon. Nobody's buying cars right now. So no, you've lost the opportunity to liquidate the assets that you have and go and buy that land. So if you're going to do it, it's time to put your big boy pants on, or your big girl pants on, and liquidate your assets, buy land cash down in a place where you can build a house without somebody's permission, and just do it. That's my advice. It's hard hitting, and but that's what we did. I mean, you kind of embrace the suck a little bit, get out there and camp in a tent on your subfloor with a bear crawling underneath it, breathing all night, and so you sleep with a rifle in your hand, and you get it done.
I'm making a note. Embrace the suck. I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's an army term.
Oh, sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. That would be in the military. Well, cool. What would you like to promote at the end here? I got your Twitter. You want to tell people where they can find you and follow you?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on Twitter. My handle, I think they call it, is @symbol, and then it's Caleb Jones, CALOJONES. And you can follow me on there. I talk about all kinds of bullshit, and I might be a good follow for you, or I might just make you mad. I don't know, but I say a lot of dumb stuff.
That's all right.
That's kind of my outlet for stupid.
That's totally fine. I'll have a link for that in the show notes. And did you want to? Are you keeping your wife's Instagram private?
Yeah, people are welcome to follow her. She's at emus.and.walruses, I think is what it is, right?
Let's see what you sent me here.
Emus and shows. That's it.
Emus and shows. Yeah.
There's a funny story behind. Yeah, emus and shows. So emus.and.shows. Yeah. There's a whole story behind that one too. But yeah, anybody can go follow her. I already doxed her earlier by using her name. So.
Well, if people are super curious,
she'll. Hard enough, they can find us.
Yeah, I was gonna say she doxed you right back in some of her Instagram posts. So.
Yeah, sure.
I
was on there until recently.
So, well, hey man, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a good experience.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and most importantly, share this video with everyone. Check out our website, farmhoplife.com. Email me anytime, matt@farmhoplife.com. And I'm always looking for people to interview. If you'd like to come on to talk about homesteading, farming, food security, anything like that, go to farmhoplife.com/guest and fill out the form, and I'll take it from there. See you soon.